Let's go, folks. It is episode 30, season 3 of the Daily Intermission podcast. Welcome back. It is Greg in studio, your host. It's the pregame show, and I wanted to talk about the chalkboard during the pregame show. If you're not on the chalkboard app, it is a phenomenal sports group chat. We've got threads for all sports fans, and I mean, it sounds a little probably tedious, at times to hear this, but I really enjoy the chalkboard app. And if you're a listener to the podcast and you're not as active in there, get in there. Most nights we're betting. Well, my degenerate ass is betting every night, but get in there. Post your best bets. Go into the different threads, the different sports that you're following that night, give a narrative. It's just such a great group chat. And, I really want it to be a staple in everybody's day to at least, a couple times a day, post a narrative, chirp somebody, chirp me, nice hairline, Greg, different things like that. I don't care. Just get in the chalkboard and be more active. So, that would mean a lot to me. The community in there is so awesome. And, so download the chalkboard at the Daily Intermission board. Unbelievable. So in the pregame show, as these monologues continue and as I search for new hosts and as I do my best to get guests and, the plug that I am, I'm going to tell a story. And I'm going to tell the story about my hole-in-one because it really is a special one. And I'm not sure if I've told it holistically on the podcast, but it was 2 summers ago. And it was the summer of COVID, I guess. Anyway, we had just started the podcast about, I think, 6 months earlier. And so I was on the 13th hole at my home golf course. And so that hole is a par 3. It's about 155 yards, give or take. I had 9-iron. And what it does, it goes directly to the clubhouse. So as you're driving into the golf course, you can see the green. You go actually right beside the green. The 10th tee box is close to the green as well as the 14th tee box. But the clubhouse is right there. It's right across the driveway. And there's a big deck. We've got a beautiful clubhouse. The course I play at is very stunning. It's a great golf course for rural Nova Scotia. But anyway, the patio was packed. I don't know what was being hosted there that night, whether it was a ladies' night or a new to golf, a swing start type of group setting. But the patio was packed, and so it was quite special for me because I was playing with a gentleman by the name of Jason Thibodeau. Shout out to Jason. He's a phenomenal golfer. He's one of the better players at my golf club, and I was playing with my little brother and and Taylor hadn't played golf for a while. He was on the provincial team. He was a really talented athlete growing up. Things, didn't go, as smoothly through his, kind of his teenage years and into his early 20s. He struggled a bit, with life and I won't get into that totally, but he left the game of golf for about 6 seasons after being, a very talented player. Like I said, playing on the provincial team and playing regularly in tournaments and really being, having a great swing. And so it was his first summer back and, he really didn't have the confidence to go to Kenwo. And so it was his first summer back having a membership. And so I was playing with those two and we were up on the 13th hole and I hit a hole-in-one and what a moment that was. And, for all the golfers out there, you never really know if you're going to get one. And I mean, the feeling that shot through me was it was so electrifying, pure joy. I was jumping around and, I remember the bartender up top, he was screaming down at me, Neil, who I've had on the podcast. And it was just a really exciting moment. And I as I'm talking about this right now, I think I've told it, but I try to kind of navigate my stories and things of my past that I can tell on the podcast. But what a tremendous moment that is. And I guess if you have a hole-in-one story or if you've witnessed one, make sure to drop it in a comment in the chalkboard or in a comment on the TikTok. I'd really like to hear about your hole-in-one stories. But that one's really special to me. Having Taylor there, he's, full, I think he's back into his 3rd season. I got him a brand new golf bag for Christmas and he's all fired up. So that was the story of my hole-in-one. But ladies and gentlemen, it's not always about me on this thing. We've got a lot to talk about. In quarter 1, we're going to go into the NFL. A lot of news in the NFL. We've had 18 weeks of exciting action and now it's wild card weekend. Fired up for it. Quarter 2, we'll talk about the NBA. Quarter 3, we've got some NHL talk. And quarter 4, I'm going to start quarter 4 off with a disappointing rant. I'm extremely disappointed in myself. There's really no excuse for it. I could have swore. Anyway, I'll get into it. But anyway, NFL Week 18 has come to a conclusion, and it was Black Monday after the last week in the NFL. Some head coaches will depart from their jobs because they have some dissatisfied, I should say, owners and management. So Lovie Smith was the first to go out of Houston. I do like Lovie Smith. I think if he wants to be hired in the NFL, he can get a job maybe as a coordinator somewhere. But Lovie Smith went 3-13-1 this season. A lot of talk about what Houston might do in the draft. I'm actually kind of bullish on Davis Mills. That might sound hilarious, draft neck Mills. But I mean, that guy, I think he has some games when he throws for 330, 350. And I mean, the surrounding supporting cast is just terrible. But I guess on that note, in Houston, John Mechie, the receiver from Alabama, who was diagnosed with cancer, obviously was drafted 40th overall last year in the second round. It sounds like he's going to be ready to go for the beginning of the season. So, I mean, if they decide to go with David Mills, there's another weapon for you, John Mechie. Yeah, I mean, another interesting case. All of these teams that missed the playoffs, I think that's what's so exciting about the NFL is these prospects from the draft are just ready to go in year one, and so many teams can look so different the year after. And then when it's all said and done, the teams that we expect to be good are good. But it's just such a fascinating league. And Cliff Kingsbury, obviously, fired out of Arizona. So, I mean, I don't know if this is a huge surprise. But I mean, I think that management, I mean, you had to do something. You had to, Kyler Murray too, that signing just looks worse and worse to me. I mean, to give a guy that much money, $250 million, or $220 million, and to act the way he does, and to have management throw in the clause of, having to study the playbook and the video game rumors. And it's just a kind of a shit show right now in Arizona. And you just don't know if it's going to get any better anytime soon. So anyway, Cliff Kingsbury and Lovie Smith, two coaches, make their way out. And I'm not sure if there's going to be more firings to come. I don't think, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's going to be a great offseason in the NFL. The draft's packed with a lot of great prospects. And but you know what? We're not going to talk about that until the playoffs conclude. Aaron Rodgers, interesting. So obviously the Detroit Lions, who we were on, hammered the Detroit Lions money line. They ended up beating the Green Bay Packers, obviously both eliminated because the Seahawks had won earlier in the day in an absolute grinded one out against the Rams. But Aaron Rodgers, after the game, Jameson Williams went up to him asking for his jersey, which I don't think is a rookie who hasn't established really anything in the league goes up to one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time and asks him for his jersey. It's a ballsy move. I don't know if I agree with it. But Aaron Rodgers said, no, I'm going to keep this one. Obviously, a lot of speculation around if he's going to return or not to Green Bay. My thoughts on it, I don't know. He's just been such a circus act these last few years. He's going to play the unknown game. He's going to spark headlines throughout the offseason. I wouldn't be surprised if he calls it a career, to be honest with you. Interesting though, and he's on to a new girlfriend. So since 2017, Aaron Rodgers has dated Olivia Munn, absolute smoke wagon, Danica Patrick, absolute MILF show, Blue of Earth, Shroom City, and now he's dating the Milwaukee Bucks owner's daughter. So this guy likes to get in the mix. He is on a merry-go-round of women as well. So he is an interesting character, but there's going to be a lot of rumors around Aaron Rodgers' return next year. Is he going to retire? What's that look like? But, I think one thing's for certain. He'll be chomping on some mushrooms and he'll be thinking about it. J.J. Watt, though, a guy who is for certain retiring. What a career JJ had. Was he a 3-time defensive MVP? I mean, what a career he's had. Tremendous talent. I mean, just such a lovable guy, JJ Watt. And obviously his brother TJ is phenomenal. Derek plays. The Watt brothers are awesome. JJ, it's been an emotional week for him. They sent him off in a nice way. And I mean, a guy that was banged up a ton throughout his career, wore the leg sleeve or the leg brace, I should say, on his arm and really went through the ringer with injuries. But JJ Watt, I mean, what a career and what a great human being, really the poster boy for, how an NFL player should conduct on and off the field. Gives back so much to the community. And I think he was a Walter Payton Award winner, I do believe. See, these are all things that when I'm brainstorming my outline for the podcast, I should kind of look into. But then I'm like, you know what? Anyway, that's beyond the point. But JJ Watt, phenomenal career. DeAndre Hopkins is a guy, he might be looking to get out of Arizona. Obviously, a heck of a receiver, was suspended 6 games for sticking needles in his ass this season. But I don't think he wants to stick around with Kyler Murray, although at times they have looked like a reasonable, serviceable connection. So we'll see what DeAndre Hopkins does this offseason. I think he would be great in New England. We haven't really had that premier receiver in New England, but like Mac Jones kind of chucks muffins. If I'm going to be completely honest, like he's not really a guy that is going to be able to, give DeAndre the 50-50 balls. I mean, it doesn't really seem like Mac Jones can throw over 40 yards. So we'll see what happens. And just finally in the news before we get into the wildcard weekend, Derek Carr posted a goodbye on his Twitter and Instagram. So sounds like Derek Carr is going to be traded from Las Vegas. He's still got 2 years on his deal. And so if he's traded before February 13th, Vegas won't be liable for that money. So it sounds like Carr is going to find a new home, and they'll be actively searching to find a new home for him. So there's teams that, don't get me wrong, that will be, thrilled to have an opportunity to have Derek Carr as their quarterback. I mean, I think like Carolina would be a team that would take a shot on him, like Tennessee potentially, if they think that Ryan Tannehill's over the hill. There's a lot of quarterback needy teams. It's just a matter of it's just like, do you think he can win? Do you think he can bring you on a playoff run? And I think the answer is no. But I think that he is a top 32 quarterback in the NFL, and that he will be a starter. It's just a matter of where. So Derek Carr will be leaving Vegas, which also sparks a lot of rumors. Like, do we think Tom Brady might go to Vegas? Do we think that Aaron Rodgers might go to Vegas? Because I'm not sure that they're going to be fully in on Jared Stidham. I would hope not. So just the headlines will continue in the offseason. But before we get to the offseason and start talking about the quarterback carousel and where people are going to be signing and the trades and the draft, it's wild card weekend, ladies and gentlemen. And Saturday, we've got Seattle and San Francisco. San Francisco opens up as a 9.5 point favorite at home versus Seattle. I'm looking at this game division. Obviously, Pete Carroll, I think he's doing this on purpose, but obviously he's not confident. It didn't sound like anyway in his interview, talking about how strong defensively San Francisco is, talking about the plethora of weapons that San Francisco has on offense. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I'm riding Seattle plus 9.5 in this one. I hate when it's just so obvious, and Brock Purdy worries me, man. He hasn't done anything in the playoffs. The pressure is going to be mounted. I mean, clearly he looked good in the regular season and down through the stretch, but it's a different pressure. It's if you lose this game, you're done. And the pressure of Brock Purdy is going to be massive. And Seattle is just kind of, like Geno Smith has had such a phenomenal year. They're kind of a gritty team. I'm not sold that they'll blow them out. So I'm going to be on Seattle plus 9.5. I know that's going to be a cold take for a lot of people. I know a lot of people are bullish on San Francisco, but I'm going to ride Seattle plus 9.5, and we'll see what happens. And then we've got the Chargers heading into Jacksonville. The Chargers minus 2.5 favorites. Again, I don't know if I can trust Jacksonville in this one. I mean, this team has exceeded every expectation anybody had for them. This is a team that 2 years ago was 1-16. Last year, what were they? 3-14. I mean, are they that much of a Cinderella team that they can go from those two records to being a playoff winning team? I think Trevor Lawrence is phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. I think Travis Etienne. I think they've got a bright future. Don't get me wrong. But I love Justin Herbert, and I think his weapons are sick. I really like Keenan Allen. I mean, Austin Eckler, and I think their defense is gritty as well. I think the Chargers cover this spread. I'm going to be riding the Chargers minus 2.5 in this one. So I'm going to be on both road teams in the Saturday game on the spread. I'm going to stay away from money lines. I can't wait for the Saturday games. But my picks for Saturday will be Seattle and the Chargers. Then we're moving into Sunday. And we've got Miami, they've announced that Tua will not be playing. I just had to look down at my recording, and I was like, Greg, if you just went through that entire 15 minutes and didn't press record, there's a chance I would have jumped through the window in the studio. But we are good to go. So on Sunday, Miami has announced Tua not going. Teddy Bridgewater not going. It's going to be Skylar Thompson, the rookie. They're going to be playing Buffalo, and we all know in Buffalo, going to be cold, minus 13 favorites. I'm going to be on Buffalo minus 13. I know that might sound outrageous, but this team is an absolute fire wagon. They're playing with heavy hearts. I think Buffalo is the team to bet on in this one. DeMar Hamlin, number 3. You got Josh Allen fired up. This team is fired up to go on a run, and I think that they pour emotion into this one. And I think they come out hot. I think this is like a 27-10. Like, I think this is a smackdown. So I'm riding Buffalo minus 13. in the first game on Sunday. Second game on Sunday, this one has my head in a blender. I don't know which way to lean in this one. We got Minnesota hosting the New York Giants. Minnesota opens up as a 3-point favorite at home. I mean, both these teams have the capability to absolutely choke Atlanta Roads. Like, I just don't know which way to lean here. I think I'm going to ride with the Vikings. I love Justin Jefferson. I think Kirk Cousins, I think that it's their time to win a game. No Green Bay to ruin their season. I just don't know if Daniel Jones is that guy. I don't know if he is. I don't know what he's going to look like on the road in Minnesota. I'm going to be riding Minnesota -3. And then we've got the Sunday nighter Baltimore heading into Cincinnati. And again, Baltimore will be without, they'll be without Lamar Jackson, which, I mean, that's tough. What is going on with Lamar Jackson? We'll talk about Lamar Jackson here for a moment. So, I mean, they thought that his injury was going to be 2 to 3 weeks. He still remains out with a little bit of a banged up knee. Clearly, this is a guy that can't just wear a knee brace and sit in the pocket. A lot of the things that Lamar Jackson does is with his speed, with his elusiveness. So, unfortunate for Baltimore. The Bengals clearly are going to win this game. I would be extremely surprised if Baltimore was able to win this. I have the Bengals already. I got them at -7 this week. The line has moved to -9. I still would be confident in the Bengals covering that. I think Joe Burrow is going to be that guy. He's been trending very well lately. I think the Bengals blow out the Ravens on Sunday night. And then we've got the Monday Nighter, ladies and gentlemen. The Dallas Cowboys taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dallas -2.5 on the road. Are you fucking kidding me? We're talking about Tom Brady. Tom Brady's never lost to the Dallas Cowboys. He's 7-0 career against the Cowboys, and I believe he makes it 8-0. I'm riding with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not even +2.5. I'm riding with the Buccaneers money line because you know what? When people doubt Tom Brady, I don't care his age. I don't care how he looked this season at times. I don't care what that team looked like at times. I think they get organized for this game. And I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win this football game. If they can stop Zeke and Tony Pollard, if they can crash and bang and really make it hard for them to run, Dak Prescott knows how to turn the ball over. I really like the Buccaneers in this one, and I'll be riding the Buccaneers. So I like the Buccaneers Monday night versus the Cowboys. Wildcard weekend, I'm fired up for it, folks. So obviously we'll get the chalkboard humming. I may just release those picks, every single pick on Saturday. Maybe I'll release them each day. But those aren't going to waver. I really like those picks, and I'm excited for Wildcard weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Quarter 2, episode 30, season 3 of the Daily Intermission podcast. It's your host, Greg, and I am talking about the Miami Heat to start things off in the NBA segment because they beat OKC on Tuesday night, and they went 40 of 40 from the line. That's an NBA record, ladies and gentlemen, 40 of 40. So clearly they were on a heater, but there's been a lot of records being broken. It seems like almost every single week in the NBA, there's a new stat line or a triple-double, or, it just feels like a lot of accolades in the NBA. One, there's a lot of them because it's a very statistical-driven league. I mean, we think about how many stats you can talk about in the NBA with points, rebounds, assists, steals, offensive, defensive boards, turnovers. There's just a lot of things, mid-range shots, three-pointers. There's just, there's a lot of different statistical categories that are tracked in the NBA, and it just seems like there's a lot of records broken and new milestones set every week, and the Heat obviously won with a perfect game essentially from the line, 40 for 40. They only won that game by 1. I'm going to talk about later on. I was kind of navigating how I wanted to talk about the NBA this episode, and I did want to talk about some of the bottom feeders because they're just such dog water, and one of them is OKC. I actually don't get into them, I don't believe, but obviously it sucks because Chet Holmgren went down for the year, and he's an exciting prospect. Obviously went second overall last year. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Dort and Giddey. Like, I do like OKC. I think they've got a lot of young guys, and I think it's going to be an exciting team to follow. Just obviously, this year's and next aren't going to be their year. Donovan Mitchell. I had to talk about Donovan too. I'll shout out to Eddie Witt from the Chalkboard app. So I actually I usually take notice of these narratives because I love a guy returning to the team, especially a superstar returning to a city which traded him. And Donovan Mitchell, coming off a 71-point game a couple weeks ago, went into Utah, and the over was set at his points at 29.5. Are you fucking kidding me? 29.5. The guy dropped 46. Went back to Utah and said, boys, remember me? Dropped 46. I really like this Cleveland team. They're a phenomenal. They're going to be a playoff team clearly in the East, and Donovan Mitchell has just been such a stud. Darius Garland as well as a freak. I mean, come on, this Cleveland team is really fun to watch. I was wondering too, like, is that a team that LeBron might circle and be like, let's circle back and head to Cleveland, and then, I'm interested to see where LeBron meets up with Bronny to play a full season, but. I mean, the Cleveland Cavaliers have been just a phenomenal team this year to watch. The Toronto Raptors. So we talked about a little bit last episode about what their future looks like and, what the rest of their season may hold. Kind of find themselves on the brink of the play-in, but, it's kind of at that point in their season where Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster have to decide, what direction we want to go. Do we want to, sniff out Victor? Or are we looking to get into the play-ins and maybe make a little noise? For me, it's, what's the point in battling it out for the play-in and get a worse draft pick? I would sell, but it was announced that Otto Porter Jr., who's only played 8 games this year, obviously won last year with Golden State, played a little bit in Chicago and as well as Washington. But Otto Porter out for the year. I just think it's time for them to move on for some guys, and I think Fred VanVleet's right at the front of that pact. I mean, he hasn't really had a great season. I know he's beloved in Toronto. He's that dog. He's the kind of the Kyle Lowry 2.0 to that organization, but he just doesn't have it this season. And I think that you'd be able to get a decent package. He would be a nice addition to a team that's looking to make a run, some depth in the backcourt. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. They're a very interesting team. And I'm not just following them and talking about it because I'm Canadian. I really do think that is a captivating story right now in the NBA is the Toronto Raptors and what they're going to do in the next few weeks. If they're going to try to add or if they're going to sell the wheels off the farm. That doesn't make much sense. Sell the wheels off the tractor. Ladies and gentlemen, the Spurs are set to break the attendance record tomorrow versus Golden State. So they're playing in a unique stadium. I forget the Alamodome. Anyway, it's going to be a 68,000 person crowd. That is absolutely electric. So they've set up the court there. So they're going to break the attendance record. I mean, that's phenomenal for an NBA and especially for the Spurs, who are absolutely dog shit to be breaking that attendance record. Obviously, Golden State getting healthy, so I expect them to win some games, and I'll be all over the Golden State in the spread there because that the Splash Brothers are going to be looking to put on a clinic there. So we'll be on Golden State in that game. But yeah, exciting that they're going to break the record, the San Antonio Spurs, for an attendance record to an NBA game with projected around 68,000 people in the house. So, I mean, obviously the NBA continues on, and I could update you guys in the standings, but you're all well aware, what teams are doing well and what teams are not. But I did want to talk about the teams that are not. Houston sitting right now at 10-31 at the basement of the league. The Charlotte Hornets, who are without LaMelo Ball, who was banged up at the beginning of the season, are 11-31. And Detroit, I mean, the Pistons have been beyond dust. I mean, it would be really tough right now to be a Detroit sports fan. We get the Lions, who are perennial losers. You get the Tigers, who are just terrible. You get the Red Wings, who are trending but still not, what they once were. And then you get the Pistons. So I mean, it's really tough right now in Detroit, Michigan. But let's talk about Houston here. They've obviously got Jabari Smith last year, 3rd overall pick, and had Jalen Green as well, 2nd overall the year prior. And they've got 3 first-round picks coming, 3 first-round picks going. I do enjoy Jalen Green. I think he's a great talent. I just what's Jabari Smith going to be is my question. And what is what do they do with those 3 first-round picks? But it is tough to rebuild in the NBA. I mean, you really have to get a superstar in the making to be competitive, and that those Houston Rockets, since James Harden has left, they have been fucking terrible. And the Charlotte Hornets, this is a team. Can you imagine if Victor goes to Charlotte, Michael Jordan's team? That'd be phenomenal. You got LaMelo, you got Gordon Hayward, you got Terry Rozier. I mean, that would be an exciting team to throw Victor Wembanyama in the mix. But they're 11-31, and I think that they should kind of, maybe monitor LaMelo's minutes, monitor some of the big guns, and really, I think Kelly Oubre is still there as well, but I think he's banged up right now. But I mean, that's a team that could be a fun team to watch if they ended up getting Victor. But yeah, I mean, these teams are just, compiling draft picks and they do the right things. OKC obviously has a bunch as well, but I mean, when you don't have these like generational superstars like a KD or a LeBron or Luka, but it is really hard to turn around the franchise. So we'll see what happens with these guys. Obviously, they're in full tank mode. These guys are going to have great shots at getting Victor. And I'll do my best to do some research for next episode or for episodes in the future on the upcoming prospects. That will be a big kind of I guess March topic of discussion once we get into the March Madness. Who should we be watching? I'm excited for that. But yeah, let's move into quarter three, ladies and gentlemen. It's the NHL, and I had to start things off by addressing this. I was completely embarrassed. I actually sent the producer on Live on the Line, Brandon. He's a really nice guy. He sent me an email the next morning. He just said, "Greg, I hope all is well. We're hoping to get you in the mix a little bit more often." And I'm glad he sent that, because I was like, listen, I love doing the TV hits. I won't lie, I'm a nervous wreck beforehand. It's really interesting. I don't know if I've walked you guys through what kind of happens. So I Skype in, and I come on probably like 3 minutes beforehand. I watch a bit of the show, and then they go to commercial. And then once they come back off commercial, I'm on live. I'm on live television. So what they do is the producers kind of behind the scenes in my ear through my laptop, and they're kind of like, all right, Greg, 3 minutes and then 2 minutes. And then the countdown is like, all right, 20. And then the 10 through 1, I'm fucking full on shitting my pants. And it's not because I'm overly nervous and I'm not prepared, but I want my narratives to be clean. I want to be able to talk fluidly and fluently. And at times, I was really rusty this time. I hadn't done it in a few months. And anyway, it's a really fun thing to do. So I'm glad they're going to have me on more frequently and have me on just even periodically. I really enjoy it. I think it's really beneficial. Not even the exposure for the brand and for the Daily Intermission, but I just enjoy talking about sports. And I think that I'm a nice addition to the show every once in a while due to the versatility and due to the all of the sports that I follow to give a narrative. But so. Obviously, the Philadelphia Flyers on Sunday, they flew into Toronto, or Toronto flew into Philly and beat the wheels off them 6-2. So on Monday night, they were heading into Buffalo, and Buffalo has really jumped off the page. They've got some emerging superstars in Tage Thompson, and Dylan Cousins is phenomenal, and I just really like their team. Alex Tuck, and obviously Rasmus Dahlin's been phenomenal. He's in the Norris Trophy race, and they've had the second best power play in the league. They've scored on average the most goals per game. I just was like, okay, well, Philadelphia is really not in good shape. Their team's banged up. They got John Tortorella, was probably losing his fucking mind at them after losing 6-2. What type of game are they going to be bringing into Buffalo? And Buffalo is a highly powered offense. They can score goals. And I was like, okay, I like Buffalo in this one. So I took Buffalo -1.5. It was plus odds. Again, I like giving plus odds out or at least even odds on the TV show, because you're not going on a TV show and giving a -160 pick and it loses. And you're like, huh, sick, buddy. But they ended up getting dusted. And I was like, fuck. And then I obviously took the Oilers as well, and they got dusted. So I was not feeling great that night. But the next night, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. We got Seattle, who's gone through the ringer. They've played Toronto. They've played Montreal. They've played Boston. I'm throwing Seattle I'm throwing Buffalo back on the bet card to take down Seattle. Seattle's been going through it. They're on a nice hum and run here, but that's going to come to an end. And I think Buffalo bounces back. They kind of revert back to the statistics that I talked about on TV. I think that they can win this game. They got dusted. And I'm like, holy fuck. So, I'm not betting on Buffalo for a little while. They're obviously a team, they went on a 7-game losing streak earlier this season, but fuck, they fucked me this week. The Vancouver Canucks, interesting story here. So, they've blown more multi-goal leads in the first half of the season that's ever been done in the NHL. I was watching that game versus the Pittsburgh on was it Tuesday night? And Pittsburgh was all over them. It was one of those games where Pittsburgh would get they would have 2 minutes in the offensive zone, and then the first opportunity down the ice would be a goal for Vancouver. And so Vancouver was up 3-0 in the first. And I was like, just even watching the game, I was like, Pittsburgh is nowhere near out of this game. So they flipped the goalie. They took out Casey DeSmith. They threw in whatever backup they had going that night. I think Tristan Jarry's still out from the shot that he took in the Winter Classic. But they blew the lead. They lost 5-4. It was unbelievable. So, the Vancouver Canucks, what are they going to do? They are jammed up against the cap. They've signed up a bunch of guys who, are they franchise guys? Who knows? They gave JT Miller all this money. Brock Besser isn't the player they expected. They're going to end up trading their captain, their best player at the deadline, which whatever team gets Brock Besser, look the fuck out. But it's just they're going to be just a team to follow because there's going to be a lot of noise, and they're going to fire Bruce Boudreau. I can almost guarantee it. You just have to. It's just been poor management, especially too in this cap era where things just look worse and worse for the Vancouver Canucks. So, and that market is loud. Obviously, remember Boston beating the wheels off them in Game 7 and then absolutely burning the city down, literally. The Seattle Kraken too. Obviously, I know they've been on an absolute heater, but I did want to give them a shout out. And I mean, this is an expansion team that we didn't really know what to expect a lot from last year. They come into the league and they're the second kind of modern day expansion team behind Vegas. And Vegas, how they use their rules and really rinse the league. And the league, a lot of teams were giving them players who ended up being good players plus draft picks for them not to take players. But the Vegas Golden Knights really had a friendly expansion set of guidelines, and the rubric was nice for the Vegas Golden Knights. But Seattle didn't have didn't have the I lost for the word that I wanted to use there, but they didn't have the same set of circumstances that Vegas had. So they were obviously a terrible team last year, but this year they've been phenomenal, man. This Matty Beniers guy, this rookie, he's on the top line. He's an all-star. He's probably going to win the Rookie of the Year. Obviously, you bring in Burakovsky from Colorado. They're playing on the top line with Jordan Eberle, and it kind of just bumps down everybody. Yanni Gourde, instead of him playing in the top 6. Obviously, we remember him from winning the first cup with Tampa Bay. Now he's down in the lineup a little bit in a third line role. I mean, they just have a lot of kind of like speed, and they play fast, and they're the best second period team in the league, I think, statistically, in terms of goal scoring. And they've gotten really good goaltending from Martin Jones. And Philip Grubauer went down, and Chris Driedger, remember him from Florida, he's on the IR. And I mean, they just seem to be clicking as a team, and Dave Hextall, their coach, just seems to press the right buttons for Seattle night in, night out, and they're in second place in the Pacific. And they've been just a pleasant surprise. Has a lot of teams in the NHL, and I would include Buffalo in that conversation. But Seattle, I wanted to give them a shout out, and I hadn't watched them much before they played before they had played the Sabres the other night, and they were good. They play fast, and I was impressed with the Kraken. So, shout out to Seattle for having a real bounce back year and a nice year to give that city some promise moving forward. Continuing out west in that Pacific Division, Calgary and Edmonton, I mean, they're close to panic mode. Both these teams at the current time sit outside of playoff spots. You'd have to think that one of these teams is going to miss the playoffs. I mean, with Vegas humming, LA's humming, Seattle's in third now that I think of it because LA's in second. But I guess you could see that Seattle would regress a bit to miss the playoffs, but do you think that both those teams catch LA and Seattle? I don't think they're catching Vegas, either of them. So, you'd have to think that Calgary or Edmonton, one of those two teams is missing, and being a Canadian market, a team that's been expected to make the playoffs, it's going to be an absolute shit show. I hope for, my betting sake, that Calgary's the one that missed the playoffs. But I mean, these are two teams with a lot of, firepower, and I know we're only halfway through the season and a lot can change. Maybe they do both make the playoffs. Maybe the Kings come back to the pact. And I think that Seattle is the team that may end up dropping out of the playoff race, just in the fact that, obviously, I just pumped their tires there for a few minutes, but they are a team that's still young and a team that still needs a few pieces, I think, to be competitive in the playoffs. But yeah, Calgary and Edmonton, I don't really know what's going on. And Daryl Sutter's losing his fucking mind. And I think that McDavid and he'll just will the way for the Edmonton Oilers to get in the playoffs. Another team that should be very worried is the Colorado Avalanche. They find themselves right now at 6th in the Central Division. It doesn't really feel like panic mode right now because we know how strong Colorado is, and it just seems like no matter what place they come in the dance, they can kind of make some moves. And obviously they're starting to get more healthy. Nathan McKinnon's now back. They've got some games in hand, but they've got to kind of turn it on here soon. You can only expect or foresee them to make noise until they've run out of time. So that's a team that, we'll be watching, and it's probably a team that we should start betting on more frequently. And the odds aren't always great on the Colorado Avalanche, but that's a team that we should look into betting on because obviously sitting at 6, they'll probably be going on some win runs. I just wanted to know too, we're a few weeks away from the NHL All-Star Game that's going to be held in Florida. And there's some rumors that there's going to be some golf kind of themed events. So that's going to be a lot of fun watching these guys swing. I know in the NFL Pro Bowl, they're going to do a long drive contest. Unreal. But we'll see what happens in the NHL All-Star Game. I'm really intrigued to see what goes down in terms of the golf events and what they might be pulling off there in Florida. But that's going to conclude the NHL talk. Obviously, so there should be some trades start to heat up here in the next few weeks as we get into February, definitely, and then obviously the deadline in March. But I'm really excited about the NHL, and we'll continue to monitor all of the news. Quarter 4. Don't really know how to say this, guys. I forgot to fucking submit Tom Kim, and I am like 100% certain I had Tom Kim locked in on Monday. Like, I fucking know I did. And I can't believe that a good friend of the show, Jacob McNaught, messaged me, my good buddy, and he's like, Greg, like, why didn't you didn't put it in a pick? And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean I didn't put it in a pick? I checked, I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't put in a pick. And I want Tom Kim so bad this week. I've got money on Tom Kim. I've got him in DraftKings, which, by the way, my DraftKings lineup's not looking very good. But I mean, I'm devastated that I'm going to be missing out this week. Obviously, I had John Rahm last week, so it's not too much of a burden because I do have a win under the belt. Okay. So right now, as it currently stands, so I'll tell you about my DraftKings lineup. Obviously, in the one and done, I took Tom Kim. It's funny, my dad's in the one and done, and my dad, he's a casual sports fan at best. He's a big time Boston Bruins fan. At one time, he was probably a huge sports fan, but he doesn't devote too much time to it. He'll give you a narrative, but it's not backed up with much education. And certainly when it comes to golf, my dad does not know much. Like, he'll know the big guns, the Rorys, the Spieths, the Thomases, but in terms of like the depth guys, like he's not. So I was expecting my dad, so he's texting me, and we go to the gym every morning together. So I was talking to him at the gym, and he's like, yeah, I forget who I'm picking. And I was like, well, like, was it like Hideki? And he's like, no. I was like, Spieth? He's like, no. I was like, Corey Connors? He's like, no. I was like, well, who the fuck did this guy pick? Like, it's not like he's just going to like sprout a guy out of the field. Anyway, so he texted me later on that day. He's like, I'm riding Taylor Montgomery. I'm like, how the fuck do you know Taylor Montgomery? He's like, well, I was looking at his statistics anyway. I got a good laugh out of it. So I'll be monitoring Taylor Montgomery because my old man's on Taylor Montgomery this week, and I was having a good laugh. But my DraftKings lineup this week is Adam Svensson, Russell Henley, Lucas Glover, Ryan Armour, Keith Mitchell, and Tom Kim. So we'll see what happens. It might be a chalky lineup. And I know DB from the Tour Junkies. If you're a real big golf junkie, listen to their podcast. They do a great job. I know they were bullish on Stuart Sink. He's right now tied for the lead with Troy Merritt. I think Troy Merritt's still using a yes putter. What a classic. But there's some guys at the top of the leaderboard here. As it currently stands, as I'm recording, Doc Redman, Chris Kirk, Cam Davis was a guy who's had some success here. Brendan Steele as well. So there's some guys here that have done well in the past that are climbing up the leaderboard. Maverick McNeely's in the mix. Adam Svensson, who came 7th here last year. Jordan Spieth's right there. I think it's probably playing pretty tough today because there's a lot of the field over par right now. And maybe that's just the fact that it's, a par 70 and there's all Billy Horschel +3. Hate seeing that. But yeah, I think, and too, if you're a podcast listener and you're not a huge golf fan, like I really promote it because it's really fun to bet on and really fun to have like a DraftKings lineup for because it starts Thursday, usually in the morning, obviously in Hawaii right now, so not till the mid-afternoon, but it gives you Thursday to Sunday with at least something to follow along with all day long. And I mean, for me personally, it's going to be a very cold take, but golf is like maybe one of my favorite sports to watch. Like it's just so impressive what these guys can do. And I think you really have to be a golfer to appreciate what these guys do week in, week out and how good they are. But I really enjoy watching golf and the different courses they play and, how they attack each hole. But yeah, if you're not into golf, I highly recommend you try to get into it. And if you need help getting into it, Netflix has announced that the full swing. What they did last year is they followed the PGA Tour around all season long. A bunch of players: Colin Morikawa, Scottie Scheffler, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, Dustin Johnson, Tony Finau, Brooks Koepka, Ian Poulter. A bunch of guys that went to live, which is gonna be interesting. But they followed them all season long. Their lives, they're behind the scenes. I cannot wait, and I think that is really gonna help bolster the fandom of the PGA Tour, and they've already re-upped for season 2. So I was fully erect when they made this announcement yesterday. Again, friend of the show, Jacob McNutt, sent me the link. I had to post it to the story because I'm so fired up about this. It's going to be amazing. Like, it's going to be a complete binge watch. Like, it's going to be a full on, like, 10 hours straight. There's no way I'm not going to, I'll probably watch it twice, to be honest with you. So excited for Full Swing on Netflix. So again, if you're not a huge golf fan, this is going to be a way to kind of get the ins and outs of golf and the different characters involved. And it really is going to be something, I know they've done a great job with it. So can't wait. February 15th. All right, ladies and gentlemen, listen, I appreciate you guys. I love all you guys. Thank you for tuning in once again. Make sure you're on the Chalkboard app. Make sure you're subbed to the YouTube page. Make sure you're on the TikTok, the Instagram. And let's continue to fight forward. I appreciate you guys, and we'll be in touch soon.